Yeah, it's a great shame. I mean, what I'm surprised at, how long ago was this test take place?
February last year, Frank.
I mean, what is that all about? They've kept that under the wraps, UCAD, for a year.
Well, that again is a big question, Frank, as to why have they done that? The ban starts, it's backdated to April the 6th, 2022, and will expire on April the 5th, 2024. The substance involved is ostarine, popular amongst bodybuilders and athletes for its ability to build muscle mass and increase strength with minimal side effects. Even though it's news to Khan, the concentration of ostarine in Amir Khan's sample taken on the 19th of February, incidentally, Frank, was 0.5 nanograms per milliliter, which is an absolutely tiny, microscopic amount. But nonetheless, big questions are still being asked, and Khan is still banned.
Well, look, if you get caught with the drugs in your system, and you provide your B sample, and you have a fair hearing, and he must have provided. He either did or he didn't provide the B sample, and if he didn't, then obviously they've gone ahead, UCAD, and come to the conclusion they have. But the fact is, it doesn't matter what's in your system; it shouldn't be in your system, and I don't care what the amount is, because it may be that, I'm not saying in his case, but it could be in that particular day that it was the residue from something that you'd taken a few days before. Who knows?
Yeah.
It should be in your system.
It seems to me, Frank, with all due respect, I mean, you've been around the boxing game for many, many years now. There needs to be a lot more joined up thinking between UCAD, promoters, the board, the media. I mean, it's crying out for more cohesion, isn't it?
It is, but it's not just boxing. I mean, they had the same problems in various sports. They've had it in cycling and athletics. It's obviously more pronounced, I think, in boxing, in as much that the names are much, much bigger. It seems when they're found out, or they're around high profile fighters. But whatever it is, there needs to be an overhaul completely in sport as regarding drugs, PEDs, whatever you want to call them.
There needs to be a lower bar, though, Frank, for boxing, doesn't it? Because in cycling and those sports, no one's punching one another in the face. I mean,
I agree. I'm not in any shape or form. I think it should be zero tolerance. I mean, that's it. It's in your system, and you haven't got a good reason for it. And your B sample is.
But there is, Frank, isn't there, with strict liability, which is why other fighters are not wanting to face the British Boxing Board of Control. You've got an outcome, right. Bang, done. 2 years, 4 years maximum, 2 years minimum, or banned for life. Yeah. But the question that must abound for you guys is, what the hell is going on with UCAD? Because it doesn't help the process. If UCAD aren't telling Ben Shalom and aren't telling the British Boxing Board of Control and are taking a sample on February the 19th, the night of the fight, they took the sample, and 12 months later, it gets dumped in the public domain, seemingly without Shalom knowing or Robert Smith knowing. I mean, what does that do to the sport, and what does it do to the effectivity of the governing body?
I think, first of all, obviously there would have been hearings. So if Amir says he knows nothing about it, so I've seen from his quotes. I mean, I haven't spoken to him.
There was a hearing in January, Frank, apparently.
What, January this
year? Just passed, yeah.
Well, it's taken what, nearly a year.
11 months.
It's taken 11 months for a hearing, which doesn't sound ridiculous to me, to be quite honest. But it's taken 11 months, and obviously they've had the hearing and they've made their decision. I just don't understand it. And I think what the big problem is with all of this is the legal side of it. I think they're going into this, and it relates to a case involving Bloomberg, the news agency, where they a few years ago, they printed a story about somebody who was at that time hadn't been found guilty, had only been charged of a crime. And I think that there lies the problem.
But can that extend that? And I get that, Frank, for landing in the public domain, but it can't extend to the confidentiality would then wrap up the British Boxing Board of Control and the promoter. So the promoter of the fight, in this instance, Ben Shalom, and the British Boxing Board of Control would be bound by an obligation of confidentiality. There can't be an excuse for UCAD to have not brought them in the loop on the basis of a Bloomberg trial.
No, I mean, if Ben Shalom was unaware of this, I think it's totally unacceptable. I mean, what we're in now, we're in April now, and if they had the hearing in January, at least he should have known about it.
Yes, you would think so.
I don't understand that whatsoever, and there's no excuse for it. I mean, I'm not defending it. I'm just trying to say what I think would be
Yeah,
a
of course.
problem.
Are they good enough,
The only
Frank?
problem
Are these
problem I can
agencies
see-
good enough, Frank? I mean, we've got this
No, it's
argument
not good
about
enough.
Conor Benn.
Look,
Are they good
UK
enough, Frank?
I don't think it is, because it seems there's too many problems with this. There was problems in the past where they were leaking stuff. They were like a sieve. You'd read about it in one of the Sunday newspapers about a boxer or an athlete being tested positive before anybody knew about it. Then they had to shut that down because I know they were getting a lot of heat from various lawyers regarding that. But the fact of the matter is, it needs to be sorted out. And I think anybody who is involved in any sport, they have to accept, if they're found to be tested positive, then that should be made public. And especially in boxing, because a boxer, if it's taken that amount of time for him, in Amir's case, for him to have a hearing, would he have been allowed to box in the meantime? Was he suspended?
Yeah,
no
That's
one
a
was
good
made aware.
point. That's a good point.
And had he been allowed to box,
Yeah.
which was a similar situation that would have occurred with Conor Benn, I think, at the time, had he failed one test, and he may have had a fight in between. That's what's unacceptable, because the guy who's getting in the ring with him is putting his life on the line.
Sure.
That's what's wrong about it.
Now, Frank, we've got you on to talk about what possibly might be next for Tyson Fury. We saw Joshua, some would say, making heavy weather of getting rid of Franklin on Saturday night, but still he did it. Unanimous decision. So what is next? Are you now actively talking about getting Tyson in with Joshua?
No, I've not had any conversation with Tyson at all. He's very short notice went away. He went to Italy for a few days. It was on, I thought it was holidays on business. He's gone there for a couple of days, and he's back. I think he gets back sometime tomorrow, and I'll speak to him tomorrow. There's no point in me speaking at the moment. We sent a few texts while it was going on, but it is what it is. So I'm not going to get into any conversations with him yet until he gets back, and then we'll meet up.
Did Joshua's performance convince you that this indeed would be a good fight to make?
Well, it's a good fight for Tyson. I think he beats him. I thought he beat him all day long anyway, but I think that's convinced me of beating him.
Yeah. So when he comes back from Italy, you're going to sound him out, and the chances are, sure, the talking would begin. Okay.
Well, I mean, Tyson's going to, obviously, he's going to make some decisions as to what he wants to do in the future. I'm not sure what he wants to do, but whatever he wants to do, we'll discuss, and then we'll get to work on it. If he wants to make that fight or another fight, we will get on it. For me, it's the perfect fight for him. It's the fight everybody's been banging on about for a long, long time. We nearly got it over the line as far as negotiations are concerned last December, but he wasn't in a position to fight, as it turned out at the end of the day, Joshua. But yeah, it's one I'd definitely would like to see.
And are we right, Frank, to be turning our attention now, as far as Alexander Usyk's concerned, that Daniel Dubois is now in the frame to fight Usyk?
Well, I did mention that to you on the program a few weeks ago, Jim. I said if we don't get the Tyson's fight sorted out, then his mandatories will start happening, and his first one will involve Daniel, and we've received notification yesterday from the WBA saying we have until March the 2nd to agree terms, and if we can't agree terms, then they will call for purse bids 10 days later. So it will come to a head by the 12th of May.
Given it's a mandatory, Frank, how does Usyk get out of fighting Daniel Dubois? How does that not happen?
Well, I've got to be honest. I want it to happen. Daniel wants it, and I mean, the only way anyone gets out of a mandatory, if they
Drop
want
the belt,
to get mandatory, is to either vacate or pay a lot of money. But we don't want that. What we want the fight. I want the fight because I believe my man beats him.
I see.
Would that put Frank Warren in a position where he's got the WBA champion, and he's got the WBC champion?
Well, he'd have
heavyweight champions.
If he wins,
you'll have Tyson has got WBC,
wins,
and you'll have Daniel Dubois with WBA, won't you?
No, he had the 3 belts.
So you would then be the promoter that pretty much controls the heavyweight division.
I'd be a lucky sod.
What about Joe Joyce? Of course, he's coming up next week.
Well, look, if the situation is, because we don't determine who the mandatories are. That what the 4 organisations got together back. I think this was a few years back, and they then decided, they
in which order?
You know, you know who's next and so forth. So after this one, it will be Hrgovic for the IBF, and then after that, it'll be Joyce.
Okay, all right. Frank, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Tyson off to Italy. I wonder where it was in Italy. And once he gets back, he and Frank will talk about where Tyson Fury is and if indeed there is an appetite in the Fury camp for Tyson to go in against Anthony Joshua.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.